We're 7 months away from what is a big, historic change of direction for this country. What the British public said to our leaders in a referendum was, we've been going in this direction for over 40 years. Could you please turn around by 180 degrees and go in a different direction? And the main leaders all say, well, yes, of course, we respect the referendum result. But are they doing it with any energy, any vigour, any leadership? Are we actually inspired by our political leaders about this change that is happening? Let's listen to a couple of comments made today, and you can make your own mind up. Here's Jeremy Corbyn, who was interviewed today by Channel 4 News.
You want to be Prime Minister, making the big calls. Do you honestly believe that Britain is better off outside of the EU?
I want us to have a good relationship with the European Union. That's what we have to have in order to maintain jobs in manufacturing, supply chains and food processing. That has to be the priority.
Hardly an answer, is it?
So we have that effective trading relationship, including a customs union with the European Union.
I've been told I can only ask you one question, so I would very much like you to answer it. Do you honestly believe that Britain will be better off outside of the EU?
We are negotiating a future for Britain in relationship to the EU, which maintains that trading relationship.
Dear.
That's what we have to do. We have to defend jobs, and we have to have an alignment with the European Union on regulations to ensure that we have maintained food, environmental and employment standards.
But you would be the Prime Minister delivering Brexit. Do you in all honesty think that we would be better off outside of the EU than in it?
The Prime Minister delivering Brexit, if it's us, will be ensuring that Brexit does not damage living standards, but gives us opportunities to trade elsewhere also. That has to be the point.
You're talking about damage limitation. I want to know from you if you think we're going to be better off outside of the EU.
The answer I'm giving you is quite simply this. A referendum took place, a decision was reached, we have to respect the result of that referendum and negotiate a trading relationship with Europe to defend jobs and living standards in this country. And that is the priority that Labour will adopt, and we would stop the Tories from having a no-deal Brexit and some kind of cliff edge which is destructive of our jobs and industries.
Why can't you say if we'd be better off outside? Surely as Prime Minister you'd want to do what was right for this country, what would make us more prosperous.
I want Britain to be as well off as possible in any circumstances, and we will negotiate an agreement with the European Union.
Really
to do
painful,
just that,
isn't it?
But also ensure we have trading relationships with the rest of the world.
One last time, do you think we'll be better off?
I've answered your question 5 times.
Without saying if you think we're better off or not.
I've answered your question 5 times, and for the 6th time, I will say this to you. The Labour priority is to negotiate a trading relationship with the European Union to protect jobs and to defend the living standards that we have through regulation, but also to make sure that the jobs in the manufacturing industry and in the food supply chain are protected.
Okay, thank you very much.
What can you say? 6 times he's asked a question, and 6 times he simply cannot answer it. And that's the guy that is the leader of Her Majesty's loyal opposition. I mean, if there was a snap general election, he could be the Prime Minister delivering Brexit. Now, maybe I've got this wrong. Maybe you found Jeremy Corbyn's words inspirational. What about Jeremy Hunt, our Foreign Secretary over in the USA at the moment? He was speaking about Brexit this morning.
But what I would say is that as a country, we have had bigger challenges than this in the past, and we will find a way, whatever the outcome, to survive and prosper.
Goodness me. It sounds like he's talking about the Blitz. I mean, he's saying terrible things could happen to us, but we'll survive and in the end prosper. Maybe I've got this wrong. Maybe you think that is inspirational leadership to take us towards this historic change at the end of March next year. And then, of course, there's the Prime Minister, Mrs May, who was in this studio with Ian Dale in October last year. And when she was asked, how did she now feel about Brexit?
If there was a Brexit vote now, would you vote Brexit? Because you voted Remain in the referendum. Have you changed your mind?
Well, I don't answer hypothetical questions, but I voted Remain. I voted Remain for good reasons at the time, but circumstances move on. I mean, I think the important thing now is that I think we should all be focused on delivering Brexit.
Absolutely.
And delivering the best deal. But you're asking me to say, how would I vote in a vote now against a different background, a different international background, a different economic background,
but you can't
potentially.
Tell me that you would vote leave now. I mean, Jeremy Hunt, when I interviewed him at the conference, he said he voted Remain in the referendum. He was the chief advocate of Remain. He said now he would vote for Brexit because he says George Osborne's economic predictions did not come true, and he said that he was fed up with the belligerent attitude of the European Commission. Now, if he says he could change his mind, I don't quite understand why you can't, seeing as you are Prime Minister leading us into Brexit.
Yes, and I'm Prime Minister ensuring that I'm going to deliver Brexit for the British people.
But you can't tell me that you would now vote Leave in a referendum.
Because I think, Ian, when you come, I could sit here and I could say, I'd still vote Remain or I'd vote Leave, just to give you an answer to that question. I'm being open and honest with you. What I did last time round was I looked at everything and came to a judgment, and I'd do exactly the same this time round. But we're not having another referendum, and that's absolutely crucial.
Well, I just don't know what to say. I mean, the Leader of the Opposition refuses point blank to answer the question whether Brexit's the right thing for the country. Jeremy Hunt indicates that half the land could be destroyed but somehow we'll survive it. And the Prime Minister cannot give any enthusiasm for Brexit whatsoever. And these are three of our most prominent leaders and politicians in this country today. I think there is a total lack of leadership over Brexit. That has opened the door to George Soros and Tony Blair and others to try and cast doubt on the whole process. I think the country is crying out for leadership. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me no, actually, what you've heard from those three in the course of the last few minutes inspires you, gives you confidence that we're going to do this properly. If that's how you feel, call 0345 6060 973, or maybe like me, you think the whole thing is pretty abject. Text to 84850. And maybe you think, just it's the modern world. Politicians are different now. We can't go back to people with conviction. If that's how you feel, tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. And of course, those of you watching on Facebook can comment there too, as you do every evening. David is a new caller from Coventry. David, I listen to those clips. I'm just sort of sitting here with my head in my hands.
Yeah, I feel the same way, Nigel. First of all, can I just say thank you very much for getting yourself back into the public eye to help us out with all this, because we definitely need a few more people like you helping us out with all this.
Well, I'll do my best, but...
Yeah, thank you very much, Nigel. But listen, I feel the same. I'm very disappointed in the last 12 months. I'm very disappointed with Mrs May. And I think history will show that she possibly was a true Remainer. Our negotiators and David Davis, again, when the book comes out in a few years' time and shows the whole thing, will probably show that what we needed was somebody strong, and I think David Davis was strong, but having his held back. Sorry, Nigel, I'm trying to speak so quickly. I'm trying to get...
There's no rush, David. There's no rush.
Now, these people seem to forget we are negotiating from a position of strength. There is a £90 billion surplus that we buy from the EU. Not in goods, not in services, but in goods. There's a £90 billion services. So the people that are negotiating, Michel Barnier, Nigel, he doesn't care about the 500 million people in the EU.
No, he doesn't. I agree with that.
He cares about the possibly 100 people at the top of the tree over there. And actually, when I refer to the EU, I should from here on in refer to them as the lavish EU, the lavish pensions, the lavish lifestyle, the lavish buildings, the lavish travel. Everything to do with the EU is politicians living like kings. And I don't understand how people can't see this.
Well, David, I have to say, I went to meet Barnier back on the 8th of January this year. The one thing I was certain of is it didn't matter, even if lots of people lost jobs in the German car industry, as long as he could keep the UK tied to the EU's rulebook and stop us from becoming competitive, he would have achieved his goal. David, thank you. David saying David Davis, he kind of believed him, but virtually nobody else. And of course, Barnier today did a press conference with Dominic Raab, at which Barnier said, we are not budging. And Raab said the negotiations are going really well. Let's go to Anthony in Staines. Anthony, good evening. Do you feel inspired by our leaders?
Oh, yes, I do. I'm particularly inspired by the economic performance which we're seeing. And let's face it, look where we were exactly 10 years ago. We were facing an absolute economic, cliff edge. The country was teetering.
Yeah.
10 years on, we have a surplus for July. We've still got a long way to go. But that's quite a milestone, 2 billion surplus
it is.
For July.
It is. No, I agree with that, Anthony. And you could also add, of course, Unemployment, the lowest it's been since 1975, despite a much bigger population. And British exports last year, 338 billion, a record year ever.
And yes, indeed, and without wishing to sound like a party political broadcast, I do feel that we have, in fact, quite an exciting new team. I hope they're not a flop. Hunt and Raab, which have brought some new blood in, and good riddance to Boris and to Davis, who I think just were running around in circles.
But Anthony, but Anthony, okay, I'm listening to what you're saying, but when Jeremy Hunt is asked about Brexit, he says, we've survived worse. We'll get through it, and in the end, we'll prosper. It's not exactly inspiring leadership, is it?
Well, I don't think we need this at this stage. That's beyond, in the horizon beyond getting over this hump next March, which I don't think will be a hump. In fact, I don't think we'll even notice. I think we'll say, was that it, you know? There won't be any fireworks.
Like the millennium bug, or whatever it may be.
Well, exactly, because as long as that economy doesn't sort of go flat in, say, December, then I think that gives us a strong hand. And can I just comment about Corbyn?
Do.
Yes, well, I've always thought he was the weakest link, because you remember that press conference in the car factory, was it in March or something, when he was really, I think, playing to the Remain brigade in the Labour Party and going soft on Brexit, very soft.
Yeah. But, I mean, he just refused to answer the questions today. It was absolutely pathetic. Anthony, I understand what you're saying. Things are improving. The economy's doing pretty well. All the fears we were given by George Osborne and others have been proved to be utterly groundless. Maybe you're right, Anthony. Maybe a soft approach is the right one. I just feel we need a little bit more genuine leadership. And then I think we'd shut down the Ramonas. We'd shut down the argument about second referendums or suspending Article 50, because the country, I think, wants to hear a positive message. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, and it is now 7:15.